is Control. We read you. Keep calm and remain on the guard frequency.
Hi, this is Tony from Guard Frequency.
This is Justin from Guard Frequency.
And we're here with Chris Roberts today. Chris, thanks for stopping by.
Alright, so we got some questions here. When did you first get introduced into the Chris Roberts universe of games, which Chris Roberts' title made you a disciple of the man, the myth, who is now a legend?
Well, do you mean my own games? I don't know. I mean, for me, I think I loved like movies and I like games, and I kind of always just wanted to sort of escape into worlds. So all my games have usually been about creating a universe that you can go around, a world you can run around in. So I think if you look at all my games, that's essentially sort of the through line of them.
Which one got you the closest so far?
Well, it's hard to say. So, the first Wing Commander was the game that was the closest to like the picture I had in my head at the time. So that was pretty much like it. Like it didn't really have any sort of iteration. It was essentially I saw this thing and I made it. I mean, we didn't even balance the missions. I mean, like we did the missions out on paper, we entered them in, and they all worked. So that was probably the game that was sort of like the most like magical, I guess would be the way to say it. Strike Commander was probably the most crafted, so we spent a bunch of time working on that, but there was a whole bunch of technology in that even to this day is kind of sort of the norm for flight sim stuff. So like the whole, we had a full 3D cockpit you could look around in back in 92, 93, long before anyone else. Full texture, full 3D texture mapping, full road shading before anyone else did. So that I'm proud for on a technical basis, and that was also the engine that ran a whole bunch of the Origin stuff for the next X number of years. Freelancer was going to be sort of this the kind of big universe. I wanted to create this universe that was sort of living, and I didn't get a chance to finish that off the way I wanted to. I was kind of frustrated with the technology, and then also just with the politics or so of working with a big publisher. So Star Citizen is right now probably my the funnest development experience I have, because I sort of feel like there's this sort of dream of this game that you can, like you can be down on the planet and it's in a fidelity, it's not simplified in the way that we would simplify it in Privateer, and the same fidelity when you're on the ship, and it's sort of and I think that's kind of what people have responded to, is it's the potential of it, right? So you can sort of see this, and it's rendered at a level that you can put yourself in there in your mind, and so it's obviously going to take a lot of work already. There's a lot of people working on it, and lucky enough that the community sort of gotten behind it in such a way that we're able to do it at the level that I would like it to do, because originally I was thinking I'd have to sort of do it on a smaller scale, and then as the game came out and build it up, and now because the support's been way beyond what I expected it to be, we can sort of scale wider and sort of do it at a sort of bigger, flashier version earlier, which is honestly quite great. So,
are you the first person that has come to the realization that technology and people's imagination have sort of caught up to each other? It's now possible to do the things you've been wanting to do since the first Wing Commander. The tools are there; you just have to put them together.
Yeah, I was kind of the thing. I mean, I took a big sabbatical from making games, but I was always playing them and looking at them and sort of keeping in touch with all my friends that were still making games. And I sort of, there was a point in time when I was playing games and I was like, you know what, I think I can do what I wanted to do. And I was just frustrated. I mean, even on Freelancer, where I had Microsoft that was backing pretty generously, I just couldn't get the fidelity I wanted. I just sort of wanted to have those environments like on the ship or down on the ground really sort of feel tactile, and you can, and now I sort of feel like you can on Star Citizen, like you're in the cockpit and you can sort of, you feel like you can reach out and
my stick wiggles back and forth. It bounces back when you let go of it. I mean, that's the sort of stuff.
And we're going to do, there's actually a whole bunch on like the next few iterations of the Arena Commander where like the actual reaching out and touching buttons when you turn stuff on will all be in. So we've got the animations for it, just we didn't have time to hook it all up for the V0.8, but it's one of the things that are going to be hooked up before you get to 1.0.
Star Citizen is in a position to push user-generated content really to the next level. I mean, you guys are out front. The game wasn't even released yet in the earliest alpha, and you had a 4-month-long contest.
Yeah.
So, what is the craziest idea in that process you've said maybe to? The craziest user-generated idea that you've said,
I mean, the user-generated content is a challenge in Star Citizen and the Persistent universe because you have to curate it to an extent. Now, like when people are doing their own modding, they can do whatever they want, which is totally cool. But in the Persistent universe, you can't just have anyone just sort of say, "I'm making my gunship and it's got like 4,000 guns on it," and everyone's like, "That's not fair. That's
a real gunship. It's nothing but guns. Forget engines."
Guns. No, we have Paul Rendell, who's our lead programmer in LA. I was like, because he set up we have a whole system where you can plug anything into anything else. We call them the item ports, but basically the way it works, say on the Hornet, is like the ball turret is a turret item, and then it has 2 hard points on which, if 2 guns, they get plugged in. But he could set it, and we sort of say, okay, these kind of items can plug into these sort of hard points. But you can chain them together. So actually, because he was cheating, chained together and like had turret mounted to turret mounted to turret. So he was flying a Hornet around with like literally 20 turrets all with Gatling guns, which was fun, but not necessarily balanced.
I'll buy it.
So that's the challenge on the user journey. But I'd actually really like to find a way to sort of make it a more formalized process where people can, because you see the next great Starship, the level of quality and talent out there is pretty amazing. So almost like, I'm trying to think of a way to do it that could be cool in fiction, sort of like one way to do it. We sort of did a little bit of it with the next great Starship is almost just like the U.S. Army would put out like recs for like, we need
request for proposals. Yeah.
Okay, we need this kind of spaceship, or we need this kind of weapon, and then essentially let the community work on it, and then you sort of select the best ones, and then it goes into the shop, and maybe the people that made them have like some cut of the sales, like it works on Steam or whatever.
Yeah, Apple developers.
And I think that would be really cool. So we just have to figure out how to do that in a sort of measured manner that works, and figure out a way to curate it properly.
When did you realize this project was bigger than you thought it would ever be? Going from maybe expected a couple dozen people in a basement in Texas, and now it's 250 people.
Where was the...
we actually still need to grow a little bit.
You're not done.
No, we did. No, it's just so much stuff to get done, and we're trying to like get it done, in a manner that won't take forever. It's really to do with the scope. Basically, the level of backing sort of said, okay, well, we want you to go full bore, and so at that point, you're like, okay, well, you know what, we can sort of scale much wider, and so that's kind of what we've done. There is a bit of a ramp-up time with it, right? So there's a time to get the teams up to speed. CryEngine takes some time to learn. It's a really powerful engine, but it's got a pretty steep learning curve. So I'm hoping that sort of the effect of having such a large group of people is going to be sort of paying off probably in the next few months. There's a bunch of content we haven't shared with everyone yet that we will start to. We sort of be focusing on Arena Commander, but we're going to start showing some of the stuff. We've been working on stuff on the Persistent Universe and just the level of environment detail.
A lot of parallel processes, and some of them are now just kind of coming online.
Well, they're coming online. We're just trying to get everything in place because the whole idea with it is that, because in essence, Star Citizen's really like 4 games in one. It's there's the space dogfighting, and then there's the first-person shooter side, and then there's sort of the kind of trading planet side stuff, and then if you want to call it an additional game mode is almost like the big capital ship stuff, which is a whole different where people function and fly a ship together and work as a team. So essentially we have all these things that are happening, and you can sort of paralyze those because the stuff down on the planet is pretty separate to the stuff up in space, for instance. And so that's sort of what we've been spending. We only really started to crank it up last October, November. So it just takes time to get everything up, getting on speed, get them integrated, and then get processes in place that makes those teams effectively work together, which we're still in the process of doing. But I'm sort of hoping that everyone's going to start to see the rewards of that, because there's just a level of fidelity that we're going for that it's like it's a step beyond anyone else's maybe they just weren't stupid enough to try it, but
brave enough, yeah.
But yeah, so
well, and is hiring Alex Mayberry part of that sort of drive to make sure all the parts work together?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I spent a long time. So basically, originally I was thinking that it would be sort of a smaller development, and we would have a much more limited feature set, and then we would build once it came out, and with the revenue we'd get from that, we'd get to add on a lot of things with it. And as we sort of raised a lot more money on the early process, I said, okay, we go wider. But Alex, I actually spent a lot of time looking to have someone for this role, and looked at quite a few different people. But he has a lot of experience because he was the senior producer on World of Warcraft for quite a while, getting Burning Crusade and Lich King out, and then moved on to getting Diablo 3 out the door, which because he came onto it, it was a sort of problem project, and then he got it shipped out the door. And both of those projects have a lot of people, teams all over the world, also dealing with the issue of delivering stuff live, right? So like on World of Warcraft, you're essentially developing and patching the game while live, while people are using it. Millions of people, 10 plus million people. And so I sort of felt like I needed that experience as part of the group. I'm not saying that we're going to get to 10 million people, but just being able to...
It's early yet.
It's early, but just being able to sort of manage a process that's distributed, has a large team, dealing with, an impassioned group of, community players already, while doing development, while keeping, live support. There aren't many people in the business that have that kind of experience. I mean, there's a few titles that deal with that, so Alex is good. He's also very sort of he's calm under fire. He's got a really nice mannerism. He's not a shouter. He's like, I'll just get it done. We're going to get it done. It's sort of this calm, steady feel. So we have a pretty big production department that we're sort of building up now. So each one of the studios has a couple of people in production. They all report into Alex, and it's their job to sort of essentially kind of make sure that the communication's happening between all the different, between the engineers and the artists and the
right. There may be a dependency in Austin that somebody in Manchester.
Yeah. I mean, because we absolutely have different areas that focus on dogfighting in say LA. But we're sharing a bunch of stuff in the UK, and so the UK is working on some of those features, and so there needs to be really good coordination, because it's like, okay, you're working on this, and make sure people are talking. If there's a blocker, you're saying, okay, here's a blocker, I need this fixed. So you just need visibility on that, and generally the people that are working on the tasks are not the best people to be sort of watching over that, because they're so focused on the tasks they're working on. So that's all part of the process that we've been working on. The dogfight's really the first one that sort of honed that. I'm fairly confident that it's going to be a pretty smoothly working machine. So
let's hope.
And as long as we get new people joining, then we can afford to keep it up at the scale it is. So I hope.
Hey, we're doing our part to spread the word. I don't know. Everyone knows your history of, say, striving for perfection, and now here you are, out front, big risky project. No one's ever done this before. Mapping the world, an unknown world out. Do you sometimes find yourself your own worst enemy? The perfection, but the need to get it out. Is that a tension?
Oh yeah. No. Seriously, the production guys are like for the dogfight. They were like, come on. I was like, yeah, but we can get the breathing manager, because we got this whole you don't have it right now, but there's this breathing manager. So like when you're pulling G's and stuff, or you're getting hit, it's sort of so you can actually, because the G-force, what happens in G-force is it's not instant. Like if you pull 9 Gs, you don't black out. What happens is if you're at 9 Gs for a period of time, slowly, and then after a certain amount of time, you will black out. But right now, you don't really have feedback of how long you're at it, whereas the breathing is going to be like...
So you'll hear that.
So you'll hear it, and so we got the whole breathing, like you get hit or whatever. So that was kind of one of the features that, the code's done, but it was too risky to put into the V0.8 release. So I was considering it, and the production guys, come on, Chris, get it. So
are they encouraging you? Are they telling you, go, Chris?
No.
They're saying, no, Chris, no.
Don't put any more in. Don't tweak.
Okay.
Because I have an artist come to me and says, I've made the explosion better. I'm like, oh yeah, let's put the explosion in. And they're like, don't put anything more in. Because the thing is, when you start to put some stuff in the final, when you think you got a release candidate, even if you put something in that you think's low risk, if it breaks something, then
you got to go back another round.
So there's a little bit of give and take. I'm trying to put a process in, so there's a certain amount of keeping me keeping me honest. And I will say that the fact that we can patch it and deliver it makes it easier for me to let the baby go. You know, it's like sort of say, okay, well, I get that it's not exactly how I want it, but you know, I'm going to make it better over the time. So.
Yeah, so it released Wednesday, and we got a patch Friday, so I think we can officially declare a content drought now, right? I mean, you know, we've had it's been 24 hours. It's been 24 hours.
Actually, there's a lot more content that's going to go in next week's one. This one we didn't want to risk because we were putting the next great Starship ships in it and stuff, so we didn't want to risk breaking it because we needed it for the show this weekend. But yeah, there's a lot of work that's going to happen between now and getting the V1.0 out. Which I think is going to be good. And by the way, I like getting it out there early because you get everyone's feedback and opinions, and you know, I think you need it. I mean, like a lot of times, if you were just doing a normal game, you know, you only get to act on that feedback if you're lucky enough to make a sequel, because then you sort of make the game, and then people give the feedback, and when you make a sequel, you sort of take on the things that resonated with you. And we're getting an opportunity to do that early, and also sort of identify some issues where, you know, maybe you know, it needs to be sort of set up better or explained better. You know, so we've got there's a lot of debate right now about the flight model and the control input stuff, and you know, there's some very specific reasons why we have this something, and like I sit down and I explain it to people. I think there's been a few posts that have sort of cottoned on to the way it is, and people go, "Oh, okay, right. Well, that's pretty cool." But it's like it's not. If you're used to, you know, the old-fashioned, like the Wing Commander style, or even the Elite Dangerous style, which is basically an atmospheric flight model in space. So it's a sort of simplified atmospheric flight model. You don't have any sort of energy conservation via altitude because you don't have altitude in space. You know, the Star Citizen one's very different because it's actually the most accurately simulated sort of space sim that, in my knowledge, has ever been done, because we're actually simulating exactly where the thruster is and create thrust at that point, which then will create linear or angular inertia. And all the ships, you know, have, you know, their like all the items that are attached onto them. If the wing blows off, it all changes the mass in the moment of inertia. And so the issue, like, that people have been sort of fighting with, like they're saying, oh, well, you know, I kind of overshoot my target, is because when you're in space, you know, when you fly a plane, well, basically a plane is all up force, right? It's
the air underneath there.
And so when you move the airline, you pretty much get, like, your flaps or airline or rudder, they've got pretty much 1-to-1 ratio for weight flap is, and then that will instantly turn you like that. So when you're flying an atmospheric model, you pretty much have a pretty linear mapping between your joystick to sort of what your angle of you know, incidence is, or whatever you want to call it. Whereas in space, that doesn't happen. There is no atmosphere, so there's no friction. So what actually happens is the thrusters have to deploy, and they've got to fire to say, you know, rotate you this way or move you that way, and they've got to gimbal into position, and B, fire. And there's a fire because they're giving you thrust, it's giving you inertia, so you accelerate, right? So the issue
starts off slow. So
the issue is, so if I'm starting to, I just say, okay, I want to pull up, so I'm going up like that, it's thrusting like that. Well, the IFCS it's not clairvoyant. It doesn't know when you're going to let go of the stick. It doesn't know when you're going to go in the opposite direction. Going. So it goes, and then as soon as you let go, it goes, okay, he wants to go to zero or rotation, or he wants to start going this way. But then it's got to fire the thrusters the other way to retrograde you, and then go the other way. So essentially, the real problem is it's not instant, right? Like, we could completely overpower the thrusters, and it would pretty much be instant, but then that wouldn't necessarily be realistic. So in some ways, a lot of flying it has to be a bit more like, say if you drive a car and you come up to a stop sign, right? You don't drive 50 miles an hour and put your brake as you get to the stop, because you'll go right past it, right? You go, oh, there's a stop sign ahead of me, and you start to brake and slow down for it. And so in some ways, like, the better flying would be, okay, I know I want to get to this point, and you start to ease off before you get there, and then you'll be on it. But that takes a little bit of getting used to, and we still got stuff to finesse on that.
It's like it's a skill-based thing.
Well, that's the point.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's right. I remember.
But the real point is because, you know, we've got all these other different modes where you can turn off ComStat, which is all like turning off traction control, or, you know, you can do the decoupled mode, which is sort of the Battlestar Galactica deal where you're going through and you turn around. And of all these different, like, tweaks and dials and stuff, and then also the energy management is actually in the game, but the HUD interface isn't really exposed properly right now, so you can't like put power to your thrusters or put power to your shields and do all this other stuff. But all these are meant to provide dials for you to be able to kind of change what's happening in the flight situation and combat situation, because the problem with an atmospheric, sort of simplified atmospheric model is dogfighting in a PvP, like in a multiplayer situation, can be incredibly boring because basically you're in a turning battle, and if you're both in the same ship that turns at the same rate, it's impossible. You just basically spin around forever. Now, in the Wing Commander model, right, or if you're flying against NPCs, what you do is you just give the ships, the NPC ships, and then you shoot them down and you feel tough. But if you're playing in a sort of player versus player situation, which will be happening in, Star Citizen is going to be both PvE versus PvP, that model's not very good. It's kind of boring. So deliberately, one of the early designs was to try and figure out how to and allow enough sort of things to dial and change. So when you're in these situations, that people can try different things, and it can so if the other person doesn't react fast enough, then all of a sudden the tables will get turned, and that's kind of the idea. So the idea is that with what we've got, there's a lot more depth to it long term, but it takes time to learn. I will agree that the very early experience needs to be a little easier and simpler and all the rest of the stuff. But that's why we're getting out there. We're getting it out there for everybody to play and feedback and sort of go, okay, well, I can see this is a bit of an issue, so let's try and fix a little bit of that. But long term, I think this model is by far is going to be the best model because it feels realistic. I mean, the difference is if you fly the Aurora versus the 300i and the Hornet, they all feel very different. Mm-hmm. The Aurora feels much more like sort of a Mini or a Beetle, kind of nippy, but doesn't have great acceleration. The 300i sort of feels fast and turns really well, but doesn't really take a lot of damage. And the Hornet has a lot of power, but it's heavy, so it sort of slides around a bit, but can take a lot of damage and dish out a lot of damage. And with a properly physically modeled setup, like I'm talking about on the flight side, you can really give characteristics to the different ships, because the sort of simplified model, which was the Wing Commander model, all you can really do is sort of change the turning speed and the top speed or the acceleration speed, and it doesn't have a feel. I mean, if you actually get in the ship and you turn Comstab off and G-Safe off and start flying around in the asteroids, you really kind of feel the momentum. So I would say flying a Star Citizen ship is a lot more like, learning to be a really good driver. And if you know good drivers, they turn off all the traction control and they can do power slides to get in through it.
Once they get the feel.
Yeah, the feel. I mean, that's kind of, and so, but that's, like I said, it's not instantly so obvious.
Repetition, practice.
But we're getting out there, and like I said, we're going to, I think at the end of the day, people are ultimately going to be quite happy with it. I mean, I definitely have seen on the forums, there's been, people that were like, I hate this flight model, and then someone sort of explained kind of what I explained, and then they've tried some of the different modes, and then they've come back and they said, you know what, I've tried that, and that's actually kind of cool, and I can see how this...
That's all going to go together.
Because it's just, you're kind of used to something, right? You're used to, you back this, you play Wing Commander and Privateer, and it's different than that because it's a more sophisticated model. So it's just, that's the nature of the beast.
Is there anything that you want to get out there to everybody? Is there something coming up that we all to be really gearing up for?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is, we're just going to be focusing on getting the multiplayer working properly, and we're going to be adding some extra stuff in the Arena Commander setup. So, one of the things will be sort of a flying around racing thing that we're going to do. So when the M50 and the 350R are ready to fly, we're going to actually release those with a racing level course. So you can do time trials, and which would be kind of cool. So what our kind of plan is to use Arena Commander as sort of like a staging base to sort of try different game mechanics out.
Cool.
So you sort of do that, and eventually then that flying around will become the Murray Cup in the persistent universe. But this would be where you first try it out and do that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's going to be fun. I mean, I'm just enjoying, it's totally cool to see Twitch streams and people making their videos and people discovering a lot of the nuance, because there's a lot of stuff that's people don't realize how much is actually in the Arena Commander, because some of it isn't accessible. Like I said, a lot of the power management, because all the ship systems completely work, and we have debug modes where we can adjust all our power and stuff, but the actual input device stuff wasn't fully finished out for the HUD and everything like that. So when that is, I think it'll be pretty interesting to see, because what I really want to see is when the multiplayer's going for the whole community, I want to see people starting to develop different tricks, right? I want to have this whole, there's got to be a whole new set of Immelmans and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Which would be super cool.
Because the only doesn't really work in space.
Yeah,
no, I know, but the equivalent is
the equivalent
is if you're going through, if you're on my tail and I'm going this way, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, my thrusters are all fired. They're actually firing to try and keep me in that turn. So I didn't. I was doing that. So at some point, I could like enter decoupled mode, which would basically just keep my vector going. You'd probably overshoot. Then I'd re-engage decoupled mode and drop down behind you. So there's a whole bunch of different like maneuvers you can sort of figure out and pull.
We'll call that one the Roberts turn. Chris, thanks for stopping by.
You're welcome.
All right, this is Chris Roberts' interview. Take one. Am I good?
You are good. And then you can thank the community, and then we'll go back and record a...
Exclusive.
Yeah. Exactly, that's what I'm asking for. You already gave us the exclusive about the Space Ponies, so we already got that.
Yeah. Just a little askew. Looks good, too. All right, I think we're good. You guys can action when ready.
No. No.
Hey, Tony, wake up.
Perfect. All right.
You sold it.
All right. Now we've got real questions. Now we've got some real questions. One more. Stay on the guard.
Hi, this is Chris Robertson. Stay on the guard.
Beautiful. All right. Good. All right.
Yeah, roll
You're
through
just coaching him to say guard one.
No. His delivery was excellent. We'll fix it in post. And then just real quick, let's do it. Just a quick intro, and then I'll let you go because Sandy, you walked in, and I think that means that you have to leave.
Line.